Welcome to the 177th broadcast of the T-Row Show. This is your host, Keith. We got a lot to cover today, folks, so we got a couple of announcements here in the beginning. Let me share screens. Here's what Facebook has been doing for a while, actually for the last 3-4 days. Make sure that you guys can see this. These are our pages on Facebook. Look what they did. So if you want to admin American Herald, you can't get in. They don't let you get in. There it is right here. Right Evans Society Post, managed, blocked. Right here, blocked. Human Rights Defenders, blocked. I mean, we rarely use it anyways. We don't, we post maybe the stuff that comes on the American Herald and Rain the Heaven Society Post, but we really don't get a whole lot of hits off of it. We haven't put any investment into it at all as far as Facebook is concerned. I think it's a communist organization myself, but just to let you know, just letting you know that this is what's going on. I think it's hilarious because you got a guy who's right. He's a billionaire, all right. He's got CIA behind him, protected and everything else, and they block our pages. We're the big threat, It's a big joke. But anyway, I just wanted to let everybody know that because what we can get, we have a couple that can get to the American Herald and here, the American National Union, but those are other people. But I can't get in there. So why they did it, I don't care. I already know that they're a fascist, communist organization, so I don't have to get all upset about free speech or anything like that. We still speak. We have our own ways of getting word out there, and we have our own Facebook, which is at generalpostoffice.org/NANP. That's North American National Party, and that grows exponentially. We get people coming on there every day. It's not a big deal. And if anybody's wondering why the T-Row show has not been worked on as much, we already have another 20 videos uploaded. We got to get them posted, but we've been busy. We're actually growing. We have, it's a lot of naturalization stuff has been going on. And we established, instead of the Human Rights Defenders International, we established the Postal Police Department. And that's for us. It's not for anybody else. It's just for the general postmasters, but we can extend it out to whistleblowers because I've been watching some videos and they've been saying that whistleblowers, the whole federal whistleblower thing was to expose who was going to whistleblow. So, and so that they could start hitting them with censorship and everything else. So it was to shut them up. So what we're going to do is we're going to extend the office of investigator to those type of whistleblowers, these independent investigators, and you'll have the title, and you'll be able to work with the General Post Office as investigators and still do what you can do. At least you're protected with something, and not out there by yourself. The other part, so the Postal Police Department inspector, a PPD inspector or investigator. I'm sorry. And I've deliberated over the name a little bit because we know that in their constitution they had the Postal Department, but this was the Postal Police Department. So, and this is all just for us, and it does come from our Human Rights Defenders International. So it really doesn't have much to do with the their U.S. Constitution. If they have an issue with it, they can do a redress. But at any rate, that's why we want to extend that for protection for people that are wanting to tell the truth. We also have the T-Row market. It was just created a couple of days ago, and I realized that coming from Facebook, what they're doing is they're trying to force everybody into buying boosting ads and stuff like that in their system. The free ads are not. I guess the free pages aren't there anymore. But the nice part about it, what would be cool, is if they could just give me access so I can delete the pages. I just want to delete them. I don't want to use Facebook anymore. Just delete the pages. I'm going to try to find a way to get a hold of them. Just say, hey, can y'all just delete these pages? Because this, I'm not. I don't care about Facebook. We don't ever use it, rarely, and we don't rely on it. If we want to get something on Facebook, we have plenty of outlets to go put stuff on Facebook. It's not. We don't have to have our own page. I mean, it's easy. So, at any rate, we've got another thing that we'd like to show people is the T-Row market, which I think was pretty cool. It's the T-Row show /market, and you can open up an account by clicking login. And if you need to, if you don't have an account, you can just register here. And that's basically it. Then what you do is you can go over to the community website or the community section and upload your own video, or I'm sorry, your own logo to your company. And I want to make the whole thing just logos and links to other people. You can create different albums, or we can. This is media, okay? As the T-Row show there, that'd be media, and any other kind of newspaper and stuff like that, so people know who you are and where you are. It's just a service, is free. And I'd like to see, 5,000 logos up there just from different companies, small businesses, because this whole COVID thing has put a lot of small businesses out of business. And obviously, the Fortune 500 companies were all essential, but all the little businesses weren't, right? And then how convenient that was. But for the big boys. But it's just basically all it is a photo, a website that we can use to put logos up. And that's all. And only in the community section can users, we couldn't figure out another way to do it, only in the community section, users can put their stuff up. Okay? So you're welcome to it. It's no big deal. Just don't, take advantage of it or anything like that. Don't put any more crap up here. Don't put any, please don't put any, Illuminati seals and crap like that. We'll just take them down. We'll block you. It's not a big deal. We'll just get rid of you. I'll check the site about every other day. And if it's not funny, and it's just, why do you have to be an ass? You know what I mean? That's the whole point about that. This is used for people who are trying to advertise their business, and that's it. Just leave it alone. All right, I was going to talk about redress of grievance this week. I talked about it last week that I was going to bring this up, and I did find some really cool stuff. Just because I mentioned the Constitution on this show does not mean that there's any form of endorsement of the U.S. Constitution on this show. Okay, and I'm going to show you some facts, and I'm going to tell you some little bit of history, and I'm going to tell you later on what I think. Okay, I'm not for sure about this, but it's what I think happened. That a little bit of tidbit information that people don't realize. Okay, under redress was I thought was very interesting. I've got some docs that I found. This one's from 1971. And I thought the same thing that everybody else thought, that is, if you redress, you're begging, okay? And that's not really what it is. It's a, what it is to, you have grievances and you're there for peaceful settlement of disputes, which is under the law of nations. That's, you're able to do that. But redress didn't drive in the First Amendment to their Constitution, or their company. It didn't drive there. It was 800 years old. And it didn't start with King Henry. It was actually acknowledged by the city of London, which was the small city that's there now that Rothschild took over. Okay, the city of London. Not London. Okay, it's the city of London, a little mile square place. Okay. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech. or the press the right of the people to peaceably assemble and petition the government for redress of grievances. Okay. Now, they didn't say which government. They just said the government. You get what I mean? They put that in there, but they didn't say it was the government of the United States. They didn't say anything like that. They just said the. If they wanted that towards the government of the United States, if it in fact existed, they would have written the government of the United States, but they didn't. Interesting, right? Right, but people really don't get this. They don't really understand what redress is or anything like that. And peaceably assemble, people peaceably to assemble. That was not okay. If you guys are out there doing protesting and things like that, or whatever, that really technically doesn't fall under peaceably to assemble. Okay, actually, the peaceably to assemble really only applies to the redress of grievances. They're both related, not exclusively. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't go out and have parties and group up and stuff like that. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the government for redress of grievances really dealt with assembly. So, in discussing the history of the most acclaimed freedoms in this country, speech, press, and press, W. Levi states that freedom of speech had almost no history as either in a concept or practice prior to the adoption of the First Amendment. That's not really true because it was in the states. The states had freedom of speech. Okay, you got to remember there's state constitutions there. It says he also states that at the time, freedom of the press merely meant the absence of restraint in advance of publication. So apparently, the most oppressive governmental entities in both respects during the colonial period were for those who don't know, the colonial period is before 1776. That's the year 1776. Were the popular elected assemblies. They appear to have have been more oppressive than either the governors or the judges. In fact, according to Levi, governmental officials, especially the judges, were virtually angels of self-restraint who when compared with the intolerance of community opinion. Okay, so basically the phrase freedom of speech referred to the parliamentary right of a legislator's immunity from punishment for anything he said by him in his official capacity during a legislative session. It didn't say that you could go out and just say whatever the hell you want. I got freedom of speech, blah, 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 blah. Starting to make sense, a little bit of sense here. That some of these things don't apply to the people, all right? And liberty of expression in principle or practice barely existed, if at all, in the American colonies. And they don't today either. Not so the right of petition, all right? Originating in Magna Carta and its antecedents, the right to petition for redress of grievances at least 800 years old. It's a little bit older, but it's 800 years old. And it was, if you read it, you'll see that they mentioned the city of London, which was the power behind the crown, the throne, if everybody gets that. That document stated in part that if we, now listen to this carefully, because the redress is not necessarily, in other words, everybody is agreeing with what's going on because they're not properly expressing their grievance. And if we can properly express the grievance, the parties have no say in anything. Meaning the 527 organizations, little corporations, because they operate under still, believe it or not, consent. If they didn't, you guys would all have chips right now and the whole deal. But they're not. They're going by consent. If we and our justiciar or bailiffs or any one of our officers shall break any one of the articles be given to forbearance of the aforesaid, I'm sorry, I'm going to read that again. I screwed up. Shall break any one of the articles of the peace, or if this security, and notice of the offense be given to forbearance of the aforesaid 5 and 20. The said forbearance shall repair to us or our justier. So I think it was, they used to call it, they probably call it judiciary now. If we are out of the realm and laying the transgression before us, petition to have that transgression redressed without delay. Now think about this, all right? That's basically judiciary or bailiffs, okay? In other words, if your judges are screwed up, this is the procedure by which a redress is done. Now, if you're following the procedure and you have redress of grievance and it's on the record, in other words, it's published in the newspaper, which is where it's supposed to be published, and served on the officers from the four, okay, from 4 jury members. Grand jury members, remember, that's 5 and 20 right here. Grand jury members. Not a jury of your peers. It's grand jury. Now, guess what? Okay, we're going to show you how this how this happened. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to bring a redress of grievance to a grand jury. Then 4 members of that grand jury are supposed to serve that on the judge or the prosecutor or the police officer or the clerk or the recorder or whoever the hell it is, even the governors. They can't touch the grand juries, can they? Okay, so that's what's supposed to happen. That little tidbit has been left out of the process. Why was it left out of the process? Why has this been hidden? Okay, now you're going to have to go back and read or watch 165 of the T-Row show. That talks about grand juries. I'm going to read just a little bit of a rule here for you. I know I'm not sharing screens. This is messed up, okay? This is really messed up. The prosecution shall disclose to the defense, this is under their rules of procedures for discovery, Rule 14. Prosecution shall disclose to the defense that permit the defense to discover, inspect, and copy each of the following items and information at or prior to the pretrial conference, provided it is relevant to the case and it is in the possession, custody, and control of the prosecutor. Persons under the prosecution direction and control, or persons under having participated in the in investigating or evaluating the case and either regularly report to the prosecutor's office or have done so in the case. Okay. Now, why is this bad? You're going to find out in a minute. Any written or recorded statements and the substance of any oral statements made by the defendant or a co-defendant. The grand jury minutes, all right, and the written record statements of a person who has testified before the grand jury. Any facts of exculpatory nature, the names and addresses, date of birth of the Commonwealth's prospective witnesses. Okay, have you noticed this, that they're saying it must come from the prosecution? I'll read this here, wherein it says, when the public interest so requires, the court must order that 1 or more grand juries be summoned. The grand jury must have 16 to 23 members. The court must order that enough legally qualified persons be summoned to meet this requirement. The challenges are either the government or a defendant may challenge the grand jury on the ground that it was not lawfully drawn, summoned, or selected, and may challenge an individual juror on the ground that the juror is not legally qualified. Okay, how are you going to know that, folks? When you've got the prosecutor has hijacked the freaking grand jury. How are you going to know that? You're not going to know that. So these rules are bullshit. Okay? Objection to the grand jury or to a grand juror. They just put this out there. You don't even know the grand jury is even convened or they're even investigating you 99% of the time. How are you going to object to that? That's called a lawyer's bullshit rule. Okay? What happened is the lawyers hijacked grand juries. So how are you going to do a redress of grievance against a lawyer if they're hijacking the grand jury? So y'all get that now? You see what they did? It's illegal as hell. So, and it's much more illegal in heaven. Okay? What's going on here is motion to dismiss an indictment. Yeah, because every grand jury is illegally convened, every one of them, because you got a freaking private membership association called an American Bar Association, under who? The International Bar, under who? Rothschild of what? The City of London, which goes all the way back to the Magna Carta 800 years ago. So it says you can petition the government for redress of grievance. It didn't say anything about the U.S., but the U.S. also put in there that they wanted to be able to redress of grievance, right, for themselves against the crown, because they're in partnership with them. The military partnership, with the money partnership, with the what? The religious part of it, which is the Vatican, the tripartite, a three city state empire represented by the three stars of Washington, D.C. flag, the flag of the city of Washington, D.C. They wanted to be able to redress that those pricks over there that run all the money, the devil worshippers, the spirit cookers. You know what I'm saying? So it could have been that that First Amendment didn't apply to anybody else but the U.S. itself, where it could redress grievance against its partner because it was established. Why do judges bring up Magna Carta all the time when they're not supposed to be subject to the Magna Carta? Huh. A lot of questions there. So what's going on here is this. They used to have grand juries all the time. And anybody could come up and say, I need a grand jury. I need to talk to them. I've been a witness to a crime. I saw Mayor so-and-so committing a crime. I saw Officer so-and-so committing a crime. I saw this guy committing a crime, and this is in secret, right? So the person's supposed to be able to go to the grand jury, and if it's somebody within the organization, within the Constitution and all that, let's put it this way: if it's not in the Constitution that a police officer can go and solicit sex from a prostitute, that means they shouldn't be doing it while they're sitting in office or in uniform. Get it? That's how that works. If it doesn't say within their constitution that or their charter or whatever they want to call it, it's different stuff nowadays, that they can sell drugs, they really shouldn't be doing it. If it doesn't say that they can confiscate guns, then they have no right to confiscate guns. So that would be a redress of grievance. And you're supposed to be able to go to a a grand jury open without the prosecutor and testify to what you saw and present them evidence. Well, that doesn't happen now, does it? Before this rule came in, before some of these other rules came in, they were able to do it. But once again, the Rothschild's lawyers hijacked the grand juries. So what we did at the American National Union was they created the great juries. Same difference, 16 to 23 people. And you can do a redress of grievance there. They've already adopted the Magna Carta, and to give them the the authority they needed, the historical authority. Not that they're subject to the Magna Carta or to the Crown. It just means that they have the right to interpret it, and they're now a party to it, and they can go ahead and use the great jury process. Okay. So what you can do now is you can take this to the great jury at the American National Union for the United States, or of the United States of America, and take it to the great jury, and that great jury will present the redress. Okay. Now you can also become an investigator with the General Post Office to give you some protection if you're a whistleblower and an investigator, um, under the General Post Office to do this. So the investigators are able to do it. Just because you you're still basically a human being. Okay, so what we're trying to do is these people that are getting hammered is give them a little bit of protection here. That there's some really good investigators out there, and we're trying to give them some protection because they're not getting it under the whistleblower deal. They're being attacked by the whistleblowers. They're being attacked by the lawyers. The lawyers are trying to keep their exclusive monopoly, which is illegal. When they hijacked the judicial branches of all the constitutions, which was an attack on the constitutions, which is a capital crime. So the capital criminals have hijacked everything. For what? This was the weird part for me. I started thinking about this, and this is what my thoughts are on it. Doesn't mean I have any proof of it. What I'm thinking here is this: by putting two and two together, connecting this dot and that dot. What I'm thinking is that the Crown runs the International Lawyers Association, or International Bar Association, and they run the American Bar Association. So what they did was, in order to protect the lawyers and the Crown, the City of London, was they hijacked the grand juries and then upset the process of a grand jury, even though they were subject to make or let it happen, or under the Magna Carta, even though they had to. So they're violating their own agreements, an 800-year-old agreement with people. They probably thought, well, they're not our subjects, so we don't have to uphold that. We'll just hijack the judicial branches. And that's what they've done. So as of right now, the Crown, the City of London, has hijacked all of the state legislatures. I'm sorry, yeah, the legislatures too, because everybody's a lawyer in there. They also have the lawyers go up in the tower, they call it, and write the statutes. And then basically they've hijacked everything. So they're foreign. And if they're going to call you a subject and all this other kind of crap, I believe the Magna Carta would come into play with the rights there if you succumb to that subjection. I also believe that the Magna Carta was an international document, and it was actually initially intended. Otherwise, would um, uh, why would a king even consider establishing this? Where in order to keep that organization legal, they had to have a way where you could do some kind of grievance with them for peaceful settlement of disputes, just like we do. We have that ourselves. Our government has that. So, and the ANU has it and everything else. If somebody has a grievance or whatever, they can go ahead and make a petition. They can sign something to make it happen. Otherwise, they can't go out and start talking a bunch of crap about about the government or you or anybody else if they don't go there first. Okay, and that's what it's for. So this is what I'm thinking. That's just a guess that the U.S. wanted that protections for those protections for themselves, so that they could go and petition the Crown and their partnership or tripartite. And I believe anybody that deals with the Crown, you don't necessarily have to be a subject or even associated with them in any way in order to initiate a redress of grievance. So my vision on this is this: you come in and you've got a great jury, and they've got a bunch of evidence against a particular office or whatever. Because in my opinion, I believe everything around us is of the crown through the United Nations. I think the crown kind of they bypassed it or went through the United Nations to get here. And I'm thinking that you've got, I'd say, if you have 23 people, you've got at least 19 witnesses, 4 people to serve the officer that has violated their agreements, their constitution, and all that. And I believe that's the way to go. And you can publish that redress of grievance in the newspaper, which is why I think Facebook is blocking us, because they know we know the power of publication, and they know that we know that we can nail them with it. Okay? And by the way, I'm just going to give them a little hint because I know their Facebook people are going to be watching this or listening to this video. We already have all the evidence we need. Okay? It's very obvious that Chan is the problem. His wife, not Zuckerberg. Or I think somebody calls him Zuckerberg, which I thought was funny. I'm sure he's heard of it before. All through school, especially with a guy that really loves high bangs. I mean, damn. Seriously? So what I'm thinking is that we know Chan as his wife is connected to the Chinese government, and we know that she's communist, and we know that she's behind the COVID thing, and she's running all that. We also know about your trust and everything else. We do have to notify you of that, your trust that you operate under with that whole operation, and we know why you're trying to get rid of the pandemic and all that stuff. Folks, if you want to know anything about Facebook or what's going on with Facebook, check out his wife. Okay? She's the one that's behind all of it. That's a planned marriage. That is not a marriage of love. That's a planned, set up marriage. Okay, I don't think there's anything genuine in that man's life. I think that boy's so messed up in the head. He is more than a slave, and he's working really hard to enslave everybody else. Okay, so everybody knows. I mean, you'll know now that it's Chan's wife. It's his wife. It's the girl Chan. I think her first name's Priscilla, but she's Chan Zuckerberg or whatever it is. Okay, so we already have all the evidence. So there's no reason to hide everything. I'm just letting you know. We already got all of it, and it's already been filed. Okay, we know what's going on. There's a lot of espionage going on, and there's a lot of Chinese espionage going on through Facebook, and it's going through his wife and the trust that they set up for it. And they're trying to stop the whole COVID thing, all the exposure of the COVID deal because of all the stocks that they're involved with, because Facebook does a lot of insider trading with their algorithms, and the crimes just keep on going. So just letting everybody know what's going on. So thanks for listening to the 177th broadcast of the T. Rose Show. The great juries are in place and everything's done, I believe. We'll let you know in a week or so. Watch the newspaper where you can go ahead and file your complaints. We're going to do this right. Okay, we're going to treat them as if they have honor. And then when they don't, when they show their dishonor, we will expose that for who they are, which means that they lose all their whatever perceived authority they have. And that's how you do it, folks. All you got to do is, in order to catch a thief, you have to expose a thief by treating him with honor. Thanks for listening to the 177th broadcast of the T. Rose Show. We will see you next week.